The deal for Michael Olise is off. Chelsea are searching for a striker, and a promising talent from Argentina is soon to sign. All of that and more in my Chelsea news roundup. Let's go. Let's talk about that last one first, because this is something that's gone slightly under the radar with bigger news circulating this last week. Chelsea are currently discussing with Argentinian side Boca Juniors for 19-year-old centre-back Aaron Anselmino. Now, there's not much information about him available online, with him only recently coming into the forefront, but from what I've been able to personally watch on different scouting sites, there's a reason why some people have said that he feels similar to Thiago Silva in terms of play style. He's not the tallest at 6'1", but he more than makes up for it with his other attributes. He's aggressive, pacey, great at recovery tackles, able to pick out a long pass, and can play on either side of the defence, though it has to be said he's much better suited to the right side, with him being a right footer. But the thing that impresses me the most about the way he plays is his anticipation. He's a defender that is proactive and not reactive, sensing danger before it happens and snuffing it out when it does. Obviously, the sample size is rather small, so I won't be bigging him up too much, but he's certainly got potential to be a star. The deal seems to be for around 15 to 18 million, and he'd likely be loaned out to our sister club Strasbourg after signing his deal, which I think is great for his development and theirs. The only issue seems to be the player's reluctance to leave Boca Juniors until December, which is when the Primera Division season ends. Nevertheless, I think he'd be an excellent addition and could be another player to join our future stars we've gained over the last few windows. And speaking of future stars, our next major headline is that the deal for Estal Willian has finally been confirmed by the club officially. The next big thing in Brazil will be joining the Blues in the summer of 2025, and trust me when I say that in 10 years time we could be looking back at this deal in the same way we do the Eden Hazard deal back in 2013, the beginning of a star being born in Chelsea Blue. The Palmeiras winger already has 4 goal contributions to his name in 10 games in the Brazilian Serie A good return for a 17-year-old, with only 529 minutes to his name. That's around 0.68 goals and assists per 90, which puts him in the 97th percentile for that stat in the Brazilian league. His stats overall are rather impressive for such a young player, and though there are clear flaws to his game currently, which is expected, it's wonderful to see how good he is at taking on and beating his man, getting into the box and getting shots off. Those shots are usually pretty hit or miss though, but again that will improve with time and experience. The official club statement said, quote, "The 17-year-old has already built a strong reputation in South America as one of the most exciting talents around due to his skillful dribbling and electric pace, causing defences plenty of problems in his breakout season in senior football," end quote. And on Instagram the young man was full of admiration for the club too, posting this photo and saying something to the effect of, "Thank you sir, another dream come true," in Brazilian Portuguese of course. We'll unfortunately have to be patient to see him wear the Chelsea jersey, but it's been reported that he's going to be integrated into the first team almost immediately, joining fellow young Brazilians Angelo, Santos and Washington, as well as our already elite group of young right wingers. Okay, quick editor's note here, Estal literally just scored as I was editing this, even doing the Cole Palmer celebration after he did. He's proper Chelsea already, I can't wait until 2025. Speaking of right wingers, let's get the dramatic headline out of the way now. Yes, the deal for Michael Olise is off. The Frenchman is instead off to Bayern Munich after the club decided they didn't want to pay ridiculous wages for the Crystal Palace man, and if the rumours are true, I believe that this is an incredibly smart decision, and I think people have reacted to this rather childishly, emotionally, and just, well, stupidly. Rumour has it that Olise was looking to be our highest paid player, or one of them, which if we look at our books sits around 300,000 a week. His Bayern contract seems to be around 200 to 250k per week, according to reports, but with them offering Champions League football and us not, it's almost certain that his wage demands for us would have been higher. Either way, I think that's a hilarious demand from a player with 1.5 good seasons in the Premier League, and though he'd have been a nice addition, I think he would be rather surplus to requirements in truth. On that right wing we have Palmer, Madueke, Angelo and Hutchinson, with Paez and Estal coming in next year too. There is no need for another left-footed right winger in our team, especially when our left wing situation is so dire. Which segues us nicely into the next bit of news. With that deal collapsing and us signing Estal, reports have suggested that Chelsea are now looking to address the left wing issue, with us supposedly looking for specifically, quote, right-footed wingers. The two names that we have been looking at are coincidentally the two players I've been advocating for in recent times, Crescencio Somerville and Nico Williams. The latter seems rather unlikely though, with his wages also being rather higher at Athletic Club, but our interest in the Spanish international, who's been playing well for Spain in this year's Euros so far too by the way, has been going on for a few months, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I reckon Somerville is a far more likely option and would be a cheaper alternative that suits our new Lick team very well, with his ability to beat his man being perfect for Enzo Maresca's football. If you'd like further analysis on these two players in particular, then there'll be links in the description to my previous videos where I have covered them. From two players I've spoken about before to one I have literally never thought about whilst making content for this channel, let's talk about the deals between Chelsea and Aston Villa, which could see young academy product Amari Amari go one way, with Ian Maatsen going the other way. Firstly, let's talk about Maatsen. It's almost 100% confirmed at this point that the young Dutchman will be leaving Chelsea and returning to another claret and blue strip next season, with Aston Villa forking over £37.5 million for him, which is a little bit over his release clause. Now, it's sad to see Maatsen leave without any real chance to impress in our first team, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't pleased with this deal. Almost £40 million pure profit for a player that, let's be honest, doesn't really suit Enzo Maresca's system is a huge amount of money and prevents the club from breaching financial issues. With Cucurella being back to his best, Calafiori being a possibility coming into the door, and Colwill being an option there too with how this left back / left centre back role will operate, I think this is another smart bit of business from our board, which has also opened the door for more dealings between the two clubs. Yes, of course, I'm talking about how this has also advanced talks for Villa's Amari Amari to come to Chelsea, and if he's as good as the last 18-year-old Villa Academy product we nabbed, this could be another hidden gem signing from our great scouting team. The youngster is coming off of the back of a pretty decent scoring run in the PL too, playing 11 times and bagging 7 goals, with him playing 716 total minutes. That's a goal every 103 minutes, or 0.87 per 90, which is rather impressive. He got 3 of those goals from centre forward, 3 from right wing and 1 from attacking midfield, which just goes to show how versatile the young man is, something that could be vital if we are trying to fit him somewhere into the team. Again, unfortunately there isn't much tape to watch of Amari, but from what I was able to view, he really reminds me of a slightly taller, more two-footed but rawer version of Cole Palmer. He's a great passer on that left peg, he's a brilliant dribbler with flair that's hard to dispossess, strong, able to hold up the ball and play in teammates, and as mentioned before, has a good finish on him too. Keep in mind this is up against other youngsters in the PL too, but he did look pretty comfortable in the short cameo appearances he got versus City and Palace too in the Premier League, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he played the full 90 versus my Scottish side Hibs in the Conference League qualifiers way back at the start of the season too. Quick editor's note here, he did indeed play the full 90 in that game at centre forward and even got himself an assist, so there we go. The only issue I have with this deal is the price. He's going for about the same as Connie Chukwuemeka in truth, £19 million or thereabouts. That is a large chunk for an unproven youngster, but with how well all of our other signings like this have gone, this could be a great deal we look back on in a few years. He's not the only centre forward we've been looking at though, because there are masses of names being thrown around recently, so let's take a look at some of those. The first was Samu Omorodion from Atletico, but on loan at Alaves in Spain. We bid for the lad multiple times, but each was rejected, so I'm not going to talk about him much as that deal seems to have reached its conclusion. Perhaps if we renew interest in him as the weeks go on, I'll do a more in-depth look. Likewise, Dominic Solanke has been rumoured to be a transfer target of ours, but again I think that's rather unrealistic, and though he's a great player in some fine form, I'm not particularly sure he's what Chelsea needs. The next two are rather interesting though, and that's because they are both popular names that have gone under the radar, so let's first start with Hoffenheim's Maximilian Bayer. The German scored 16 goals and got 3 assists in 33 games in the Bundesliga last season, a rather good return that put him 5th in the top scorers charts behind Undav, Openda, Girassi and of course Harry Kane. He did this in a total of 2,435 minutes, so that's a goal every 153 minutes, or about 0.6 per 90, putting him in the 86th percentile for that stat. Luckily, there's a lot more footage to watch when it comes to the 21-year-old, and it's very clear when you watch him that he's a bit of a Nicholas Jackson type. Loves to run into the channels, especially the left one, loves to take on players, has a decent finish on him and isn't afraid to shoot on sight. He's got pace, height and is able to receive the ball in advanced areas and has a very good conversion rate. However, his passing isn't the greatest, like a lot of strikers to be honest, and I am sceptical because of him playing in the Bundesliga. That league is notorious for teams leaving a lot of space in behind and thus granting more success to strikers with pace that like to run into that space, aka Timo Werner type strikers, and we know how well that went. I will say though, if he's coming in to be competition or a backup to Jackson, I think he'd fit in pretty well considering how similar their playstyles are, so hopefully the rotation between the two wouldn't disrupt our flow very much. I suppose if he does sign, we'll have to see if his clinical finishing diminishes, just like our former German forwards did. The other name that has been tossed around is Canadian striker Jonathan David, or Jonathan David, depending on who you ask. He's from Haitian descent, and I know they speak French and Creole over there, but he's from a largely Anglophonic part of Canada and was born in the US, so I'm going to be sticking to the English pronunciation of his name. If you're from Canada, feel free to correct me if I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, Jonathan David has been firing in goals for Lille for an extended period now without attracting much attention until very recently. The Brooklyn-born baller has scored 19 goals and bagged 4 assists in 34 appearances in Ligue 1 last season just gone, and with a proven track record of goal scoring, he seems like he'd be a suitable striker to come into this Chelsea team, providing competition to Jackson but not immediately outright replacing him. Looking at his stats in comparison to other strikers in the top 5 leagues, you can see that he's overall a pretty decent centre forward. Good goal scoring stats, fantastic passing, and relatively good at defending from the front too. These don't really paint the full picture though, so let's look a little bit more in depth. And one thing in particular stands out massively. His shot accuracy is insanely high at 56.6%, with him not taking shots incredibly often but still managing to get a lot of shots on target per 90 with 1.47. And this is the main thing that he's good at if you watch him. His finishing is clinical and he's very good in 1v1 scenarios versus the goalkeeper, something that Jackson, despite his many good attributes, is lacking to some extent. You'd think that this would make David a pretty selfish striker, but he's far from it in fact. His passing is one of his better attributes, and he doesn't mind letting his teammates take the glory. You can see here that his passing accuracy is rather high regardless of whether he's attempting short, medium or long passes, with his completion percentages being very high in those metrics despite once again not actually attempting many passes, similar to his shooting. This culminates into a striker that can be described in one word: efficient. And though his height leaves less to be desired at only 5'9" and not winning his aerial duels often, good things come in small packages, and hopefully that package is a relatively cheap one, with his price tag touted to be around 25 to 30 million euros. Finally, another shock twist is that Barcelona's Marc Guiu has also been a target for us, and supposedly Chelsea have paid his very low 6 million euros release clause for the young striker to join us this summer. This doesn't seem to be a signing for the first team, and I'm almost certain it won't be, but you never know. He could act as backup to Jackson if he impresses in training. We'll have to wait and see whether any of these news stories develop further and the deals do go through, but if you can't wait until then, YouTube reckons you'll enjoy one of these 2 videos on screen in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on you Blues!